Welcome, very warm welcome to all of you. Thanks for joining this important session. It's a pleasure and privilege to have Professor Dr. Alok Kumar with us this evening to talk on his recent book on ancient Hindu science, its transfer, its transmission and impact on world cultures. As previously informed, Dr. Alok Kumar is a distinguished professor of physics at the New York State University at Oswego. Dr. Alok Kumar has been teaching in American higher education system for the past over 4 decades and has received from the New York State University the Chancellor's Award for Excellence in Teaching and the President's Award for Creativity and Scholarly Activity in Research. Dr. Alok Kumar is a fellow of Alexander von Humboldt, I don't know if I'm pronouncing correctly, Foundation in Germany. He is a Fulbright specialist and a NOAA NASA fellow. He is active in the fields of atomic physics, chemical physics, history of science, and science education. Besides publishing several articles in leading journals and media, Dr. Alok Kumar co-authored 4 books, including Science in Medieval World, Sciences of Ancient Hindus, Unlocking Nature in Pursuit of Salvation, A History of Science in World Cultures, Voices of Knowledge, and the one which is the topic for today is Ancient Hindu Science, its transmission and impact on world cultures. Dr. Alok Kumar's presentation today is indeed fascinating. He will outline ancient Hindus and India's scientific achievement, of which not only Indians, but entire humanity should be proud. Dr. Alok Kumar has used scientific norms and rational and objective analytical methods in writing this book, backed by references to the works of renowned thinkers and scientists. This morning, I was briefly going through a book that I happened to have on my bookshelf, the book titled Early Greek Science, Tales to Aristotle, written by Sir Geoffrey Lyot of Cambridge University, UK. In his book, Sir Lloyd says that Western science originated with the Greeks, for they were the first to attempt to explain natural phenomena consistently in naturalistic terms, and they initiated the practice of rational criticism of scientific theories. Sir Lloyd's book traces the Greek science through the work from Pythagoreans to Aristotle, but hardly does justice to the scientific invention or discovery that ancient India is known for. See, Indian mathematicians had discovered Pythagoras' namesake theorem independently long before Pythagoras himself did. There is evidence in Budhyana Sulabha Sutra, which was written around 800 BC to 500 BC, contains a statement of the Pythagorean theorem as well as geometrical proof for an isosceles right triangle. As Dr. Kumar noted in his book, ancient Hindus invented the base 10 number system and 0 that are now used globally, carefully mapped the sky and assigned motion to the earth in their astronomy, developed sophisticated system of medicine, Ayurveda, that was 5000 BC, mastered metallurgical methods of extraction and purification of metals, developed the sciences of yoga, that is 2700 BC, besides ancient dentistry, 7000 BC, and plastic surgery, 2000 BC. These and many other scientific discoveries or inventions India has got ignored are not adequately covered in most Western history books on the subject. So let us hear from Dr. Alok Kumar what he found out about ancient Hindu science, its transmission and impact on world culture. So Dr. Alok Kumar, the floor is yours. So please begin here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deshpande-ji. It's so nice of you to invite me. And you just mentioned about Pythagoras and his theorem. And so what I'm going to do is I'll share with you that even that theorem was India's contribution. It's just that for some reason, the way books are written, that information is not shared. But in the historical documents, that information is very clear. So let me explain what I'm going to do today. I will talk a little bit about the current status of the history of science. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the 11th century. Why 11th century? The reason is it's a period before the colonization, and the Islamic invasion of India happened during the 11th century. So I'm going to share with you, during the 11th century, what was Europe thinking about India and what was the Islamic countries thinking about India. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about some contributions. And since this is a spiritual group, I think it would be fair to talk a little bit about science and religion also. So that's the plan. And I've been told that I should stop my lecture in 55 minutes. And being a physicist, I go by the clock. So I will stop in 55 minutes. And if I don't, remind me. I teach at the State University of New York. It's in Oswego. It's a university that is located on the shores of Lake Ontario, which is one of the Great Lakes. And the building that I'm showing, that's my office, and it's hardly 30-second walking distance to the Great Lakes, one of the Great Lakes. It's a beautiful city, I must say that. And in India, I grew up in Haridwar. I have some affinity with water. And whatever I have learned and whatever I know today, I attribute that to this city, Haridwar. Now, in my case, I have written these 4 books: Science in the Medieval World, Sciences of the Ancient Hindus, A History of Science in World Cultures, and Ancient Hindu Science. But when you see the titles, there are 6. And the reason is my book, Ancient Hindu Science, it has been published from Switzerland, from Springer. And those who are in sciences, they know that Springer is publishing Nature magazine, as well as in America, Scientific American. So now this one was published in India. That's by Jacob, based in Mumbai. And this one was published in America. So this book was published from 3 different countries. And so that's the reason we have these 6 titles. Let me talk a little bit about the GDP of India over the years with respect to the world's GDP. A British economist, Angus Madison, he documented that information. And at the time when Jesus the Christ was walking on the street of Jerusalem in 1 AD, India had 32% of the whole world's GDP. 32%. That means it's almost 1/3 of the whole world's GDP was based in India. In 1000 AD, it was about 28%. And in 1947, it was close to 2 to 3%. So you can see the decline in India, over the years. And last year in 2022, it was close to 9.3%. By the way, these numbers that are in magenta colors, those numbers, I have taken it from the from the internet. Otherwise, rest of the numbers are from this book by Angus Madison, which is considered to be a very popular book dealing with this topic. Now, the reason I'm talking about GDP, India must be manufacturing something and selling it to something, to other countries, so to have this kind of GDP. Now, let me share what is the current status of the history of science. The current status is, in year 2000, American Association for the Advancement of Science, which is a scientific body, perhaps the largest, they publish a magazine called Science Magazine. And in the January 14, 2000 issue, they decided that they are going to compile a list of the top 100 contribution to science in human history. And 98% of the contribution they documented came from the Western world, and only 2 came from the non-Western world. Number 1, the invention of zero to India. And second was the astronomical observation of the Hindus and the Mayans. They clumped it together. And by the way, when I'm writing contributions, astronomical observation of the Hindus, that term Hindu is not chosen by me, it was chosen by the original author who wrote that article. There was no mention of China, Africa, Latin America, and the Middle East. So this is the current status of our knowledge, where basically, is the Western world and India that basically covers, most of the sciences. Now, talking about the astronomical observations of the Hindus, I do not know how many of you have taken a course in astronomy, in introductory course. If you have taken, my feeling is you did not learn about astronomy from the Hindus. It's never taught in any course. In fact, I have done that survey, and I have recently published that the most textbooks do not talk about the observations, astronomical observations of the Hindus. Now, the issue is, if it is good enough to be among the top 100 contributions in human history, why don't we teach? Or, to think it the other way, maybe what we are teaching is an incomplete knowledge. And the truth is, that is the case. What we are teaching is a filtered knowledge that we are sharing, and that filtration started before the West decided to colonize these ethnic cultures, and it is still continuing. That's the case. Now, so this is the current status. Let me share what was the situation in the 11th century. As I mentioned, Mahmud Ghaznavi, he invaded in India. And when he invaded in India, he brought with him 2 scholars. One was Al-Biruni, and second was Ferdowsi. I'm going to focus on Al-Biruni because he was a scientist and a natural philosopher, And he wrote a book, a very popular book, Al-Biruni's India. So he came to India. He stayed in Lahore, which is right now in Pakistan. And he compiled basically a history of science in India. It's a very popular book, available on the internet and easy to look at. Now, I'll come back to Al-Biruni in a few minutes, but let me talk about Said al-Andalusi. He's a Spanish natural philosopher who lived in Spain, and he decided, he was a Qadi, means he was a judge, he was a Muslim, and he decided to compile a history of the science in the whole world. And to my knowledge, that is the very first book ever published with a global look of science. Usually, before that, people wrote books about science where they confined their statements related to their own region. But this was the very first attempt where he tried to compile a history of the world. It's a very popular book, very popular during the medieval world, but unfortunately not known to the English-speaking world today. Why it happened this way, you will see that, because let me share some of these statements from Said al-Andalusi, and you'll get the idea. According to him, he divided nations based on their contribution to science, and the top nation was Hind. And so according to him, the first nation to have cultivated science is Hind. This is a powerful nation having a large population and a rich kingdom. Hind is known for the wisdom of his people. Over many centuries, all the kings of the past have recognized the ability of the Hindus in all branches of knowledge. That's what the European knowledge was about India in the 11th century. Somehow that changed later on. Now, he wrote another thing, another statement coming from the same Said al-Andalusi. The Hindus, as known to all nations for many centuries, are the essence of wisdom, the source of fairness and objectivity. They are the people of sublime pensiveness, universal apologues, and useful and rare inventions. In this statement, the two things that are important to me is he's saying in Europe, basically, Europe is admitting that India has some useful and rare inventions. And the second thing is, let me explain what universal apologues means. In India or among the Hindus, their morality is not based on religion. Sorry, means it's not that they are going to have one set of rules for Hindus and another set of rules for other people of other, faiths. So that's how Hinduism is, and that's a beauty. I mean, they are nowhere in Hindu religion they'll say, okay, we should speak the truth, but if you are a Hindu, you can lie a few times. It's okay. Or if you are a non-Hindu, we will tax you. Something that was done. So Hindus, they have a universal apologues. Their morality is universal in nature. And that is the reason we talk about Vasudev Kutumbakam or Satyamev Jayate or Sarve Bhavantu Sukhine. May all sentient beings be at peace. no one should suffer from illness. They are not saying that Hindus should not suffer from illness. They are saying all. So that's something beautiful, unique about Hinduism. Let me talk about Al-Biruni, This is what he is writing in 11th century, that Hindus, they believe with regard to God that he is one. So basically saying that God is one in Hinduism, something people have difficulty in understanding even today. When Hindus worship different manifestations of the same God, people have difficulty. So that's what Al-Biruni shared in his book. He also explained why Hindus do idol worshipping. Why do they do Murti Puja? And according to him, the popular mind leans towards the sensible world and has an aversion to abstract thought, which is only understood by the highly educated people, of whom in every time and place there are only a few. This is the cause which leads to the manufacture of idols, monuments in the honor of certain much venerated persons, people, prophets, and so on. So he is explaining why Hindus do Murti Puja. Now, because I'm going to talk about science, so let me share some of his statements, what he said about science. Some people maintain, some people means people in India or among the Hindus, that the first motion does not lie in the meridian but belongs to Earth. Basically saying it is the Earth that is moving and not the sky, not the sun. And then he's trying to refute that and said, if that is the case, then birds will not return to its nest as soon as it has flown away toward the west. So basically saying if Earth is rotating, if a bird is flying in the direction of west, then that bird will not be able to go back to its nest. Well, today, the most important thing is, because he refuted, he condemned basically this is Hindu beliefs that is used as a evidence that Hindus did believe that Earth is moving. Something, I'm going to talk a little bit more about a little bit later. About the heliocentric, the followers of Aryabhatta maintain that Earth is moving and the heaven resting. People have tried to refute them by saying if such was the case, stones and trees would fall from the earth. This is what Al-Biruni is saying about 500 years after Aryabhatta. So that tells you that the knowledge that was considered to be ancient knowledge in India, the rest of the world could not understand for a long time to come. About the numbers, he's writing that I have studied the names of the orders of the number in various languages with all kinds of people with whom I have been in contact, and have found, this is important, that no nation goes beyond 1,000. The Arabs too stopped with the 1,000, which is certainly the most correct and most natural thing to do. So basically he's saying that, there is no need to go beyond 1,000. And today we know that how wrong he was. Now, he is also writing that Hindus, they are not good in writing history. And a civilization that is so old, it's a natural thing to do, because nothing new, there is nothing that has not happened many, many times before. So the civilizations that are very old, that happens in many cases. But Hindus, they were not good in writing history, documenting, and Al-Biruni mentioned that. Now, related to science, he is talking about Mahmud Ghaznavi. Mahmud utterly ruined the prosperity of the country and performed those wonderful exploits by which the Hindus became like dust, atoms of dust, scattered in all directions. Like a tale of old in the mouth of the people, their scattered remains cherish, of course, the most inveterate aversion toward all Muslims. This is the reason to why Hindu science have retired away from those parts of the country conquered by us. Basically saying that, scholars are moving away from the region where controlled by the Muslims. And that's the reason they have fled to places which our hands cannot yet reach, to Kashmir, Banaras, and other places. So this is coming from a Muslim scholar who was with Mahmud Ghaznavi, and he was a Muslim, and we have to trust this document. Now, the last statement, and then I'm going to move to something else. The present times, however, are not of this kind. They are very opposite, and therefore it is quite impossible that a new science of any kind of research should arise in our day. What we have of sciences is nothing but the scanty remains of bygone, better times. So basically in 11th century, he's saying that there is a decline in science because of our invasion. And prior to that, it was much better. So that's what, the Islamic scholars wrote about Hindus in the 11th century. Now, the question is, what kind of inventions Hindus did? So let's talk about that also. What are those useful and rare inventions? And to understand, I think we have to understand Hindu traditions. And their tradition is the power of questioning. Among the Hindus, it's okay to ask questions. Gita is based on questions. There are Upanishads based on questions. So no question is forbidden. And I mean, when you read Gita, when Arjuna is asking questions from Lord Krishna, he's not saying that, listen to me, and otherwise you will go to hell. No, he tried to explain, and that's the beauty of that tradition. And those who are in research, that, debating and questioning, these are very important tools of investigation. In India, if there were differences, those differences were resolved with debate. And I do not know how many of you have read that Charak Samhita, where in Charak Samhita, they have defined the rules of debates, which is much better than, what is described with, Robert's Rules of Order, which are currently used, in the civilized world for conducting debates. Now, the respect for gurus among the Hindus, that's another example that the society, worshipped sort of, knowledge. And as a result of, gurus were worshipped. And there was no conflict between science and religion. By the way, this science and religion, I will end my talk from there. And the reason is, there is something very unique about among the Hindus, the relationship of science and religion. So Hindus is the rationality and not faith, which is the foundation of Hindu religion. Our teachings are open to inquiring mind, means you can ask questions. That's something very important. And as I have already mentioned, that Robert's Rule of Order is provided in Charak Samhita. They are saying that there should not be any celebration for the victor or any insult to the loser. And they have defined all the rules how to debate in a polite manner. Now, another very important thing, that progress in science has never been a hindrance to spiritual growth in ancient India. That's how, it was. And I'm going to give you, examples of that. When Aryabhatta wrote his book on astronomy and mathematics, he said that whosoever knows this book, which describes the movements of the earth, again, he's defining, suggesting that earth is moving, and the planets in the sphere of the constellations, passes through the path of the planets and goes to the higher Brahma, means you get moksha if you can become good in astronomy. This is what Aryabhatta. So astronomy was a tool to achieve moksha, which is the highest goal for any Hindu. The same thing when Kannada wrote Vaisheshika Sutra, he wrote that physics, a study of physics can lead to liberation. So astronomy, physics, chemistry, music, fine arts, all these disciplines, they were avenues to moksha, and therefore there was no conflict of science and religion, and therefore no Galileo was ever imprisoned in India. That did not happen. That's something quite unique in the Hindu history or in the Indian history. Now, talking about some of the contributions, as I mentioned, zero was invented in India, and zero has a importance only when we are using place value notation. So let me talk a little bit about place value notation. When we are writing 11, we write 11 as 1 and 1. The 1 on the left is equal to 10. That means the location of a number will define its magnitude. That's what place value notation is the location that will define. Zero becomes important only in place value notations. And because of that, when Copernicus, he wrote his book, where he also defined, this solar system and the motion of the earth, he wrote in the beginning that I'm going to use this mathematics of the Hindus because I can do calculation very fast. With the Latin or Roman numerals, it is not possible. So this place value notation, the rules of addition, multiplication, division, all these, you can do it very fast. And that's something so unique about, and that's part of the reason, it's now used universally in all over the world. And it is so profound and yet so simple that we teach the number system first before we teach alphabet to a child. That's the beauty of this number. By the way, why do we call 0, 0? If you read that, in India, it was called Shunya. Shunya means nothing. When Arabs learned about 0, they used the term that means nothing. And that term is sifar. So sifar means nothing in the Arabic language. That sifar, when Europeans learned it from the Middle East, they called it cipher. So cipher became, it was called 0. Then the Italian decided that in place of writing it with C, let's write it with Z. So they wrote cipher with Z, and eventually French, they pronounce it as 0. So that's the history of 0. That it went from India to the Middle East, and from there Europe, and now it is used universally. Now, trigonometry, which is, I'm going to, by the way, skip a few slides, and the reason is the limitation of time. So I'm going to, sorry. Right here. The sine function, then sine theta is equal to, A divided by C, means perpendicular divided by hypotenuse. This knowledge, it was again defined in Aryabhatiya, which is the book written by Aryabhata, where he used the term for that Jaya. Jaya was the term used in Aryabhata's book for sine function. When Arabs learned it, they called it jib, or jab, which is quite similar in pronunciation. But those who know a little bit of Hindi, they know that jab means pocket. And when Europeans learned this function, they literally translated, and the word for pocket in Latin is sinus. And that's what became, they abbreviated it, and that's what became, sine. So this is, again, a knowledge that is going from India to Middle East, and from there to Europe. Now, in mathematics book, we never share this knowledge, unfortunately. You pick up any book, you are not going to get it. But if you pick any dictionary, almost all dictionaries will have this knowledge, and all encyclopedia will have this knowledge. My feeling is, if we start teaching this, it can make science multicultural in nature, and that will be very good to science. Unfortunately, we are not doing it at this point. But the way things are changing within my lifetime, I think it will change. Now, since we are dealing with this right angle triangle, which where a square plus b square is equal to c square, which is, we say that it was Pythagoras who gave us this knowledge. Let me share something about Pythagoras. I'm going to, okay. Now, Apollonius of Tyana, he was a very famous philosopher in the 1st century. And he's saying, I did not sacrifice, I do not touch blood even on the altar. Since that was the doctrines of Pythagoras, it was the doctrines of the naked philosopher of Egypt and the wise men of India, from whom Pythagoras and his sect derived the seeds of philosophy. So even in the Greek documents, it is saying that Pythagorean knowledge or doctrines came from India. By the way, Pythagoras was a strict vegetarian, like Indians, Hindus. He migrated from place to place, like monks, and he believed in reincarnation, which was a very foreign concept in Greece. Now, not only Apollonius, Clement of Alexandria is saying that Pythagoras learned the philosophy from his interactions with these Brahmins. Eusebius, again, saying the same thing. And recently, it was Voltaire who wrote that the Pythagoras, the gymnosophist, may alone serve an incontestable proof that the true science was cultivated in India. It is even more probable that Pythagoras learned the properties of these from Indians. Now, I'm showing you all these Western documents saying that Pythagoras learned it from India, but we have selectively filtered that information out. We never talk about, connection of Pythagoras with India. That's how things are at this stage, but my feeling is it is going to change with time. Now, let me share something about Aryabhata, and then I think I'm going to talk about science and religion, because my time is almost up, and I would be happy to come back some other day, if you want me to. Basically saying that when you are going in a boat, you see that the shore, trees on the shore are moving backward. That the same way a person sitting in Sri Lanka sees the stationary stars moving backward exactly toward the west, because Earth is moving from west to east. Therefore, the stars are moving from east to west. Why Sri Lanka? That's the closest to the equator. And so he has clearly mentioned that, and it is very well accepted, that he's, because this is not a, something alone, a isolated statement. He has mentioned that in multiple places where he assigned motion to the earth. But you read any book on astronomy, you are not going to read about Aryabhata, which is an unfortunate situation. But my feeling is, as I mentioned before, that perhaps within my lifetime is going to change. The reason I'm saying it is when I published my book, that the impact it has made, based on that, my feeling is other books will be written, and perhaps things will change. I'm going to skip on most of these. By the rust-free iron, there is a criticism of the Indian culture that they did not work with their hands. This is wrong. They were able to make rust-free iron. They were able to make Damascus steel. We call it Damascus because European learned it from Damascus. But if you go to Damascus, they say is coming from India. In fact, the term Falade Hind, is used. And when by the Alexander defeated Porus, Porus gave him, lots of gifts. And one gift was, 6,000 pounds of steel, something that Alexander could not have. So Indians were very good with, working with their hands, and they were very good with technology. Unfortunately, during colonization, that information disappeared. They knew about plastic surgery, and I'm going to skip most of it. By the way, I just want to, the very first book written on plastic surgery was in 1816. And in that book, it says that Indian practice is time immemorial, means Indians knew about plastic surgery a long, long time. And we have Sushruta Sahinta, where it is documented quite well. But that will be some other time, some other day. Let me talk a little bit about, science and religion. Now the issue is, who was the first person who thought about God? Why did they think about God? Think about it. You will know that the only way to know about Creator is through the creation. So human beings, they saw the world around them, and then they saw some features that they thought that cannot be random. So now the question was, who created those? And that's how perhaps this concept of creator started. So it is the study of creation that led us to believe in creator. When I'm saying study of creation, study of this creation, that means we are talking about science, because in science, that's what we do. We study, the beauty of creation. And that is the reason during the ancient world and during the medieval world, mathematics, astronomy, geometry, physics, medicine, these were all considered as sacred sciences. That's the reason Ayurveda said that if you practice astronomy and become good at it, you can achieve moksha. That's the reason Kannada said that, by becoming good in physics, you can achieve moksha. So because these were considered to be sacred sciences. Now, talking about, the connection of science and God, this is what Newton wrote. Basically, he talked about when you are studying nature and studying that order that we have in nature and the beauty that we have in nature, the body of animals, then from there you conclude that there is a God, there is a living, intelligent, omnipresent person. This is what Newton wrote. Let me share about Einstein, because that's very recent. Einstein, he wrote an article in New York Times Magazine, November 9th, 1930. And he wrote, a contemporary has said, not unjustly, that in this materialistic age of ours, the serious scientific workers are the only profoundly religious people. And the reason he wrote that is because you can learn about Creator only through creation. And that's what we do in science. And so because of that, by the way, we don't share this information But Newton and Einstein and all these people, they were very religious people. And they wrote about it, but you don't see those things in, science books. Even today, the Royal Society of London, which is the, a leading scientific organization established in 1660, in their charter, it says that they are doing its work to the glory of God, the Creator, and the benefits of the human race. This is the reason why we do science. By the way, it was in the original charter in 1660. In 2012, they revised that charter. And this statement is in that charter also. So that's what, the connection of science and religion is something, we don't, unfortunately, we don't talk much about. And science and therefore science and religion, they were not the forces that, opposed each other. In fact, they help each other. Astronomy, music, physics, chemistry, these were all fulfill the needs of religion. And I think my 55 minutes are over, so I'm going to stop. I would be happy to take your questions and your comments. And if you have any suggestion for me, feel free to share with me. I would be delighted, to learn those things.
Thank you, Dr. Alok Kumar, for excellent presentation. But you have gone so fast that we have missed a lot of your PowerPoint. So you have to please share your PowerPoint with us.
Oh,
to understand
absolutely. No problem. No problem.
And they say that the aim of science is to uncover the deepest spiritual truths. And the aim of spirituality is the search for the cause behind the scientific fact. So you are very right. Science and religion they say physical scientists who have chosen science as their field are not much different from spiritual scientists. Physical scientists are not different from spiritual scientists who spend time engaged in the spiritual search. So there is a complementarity in science and religion. I think we should open up for discussion. So any questions anyone has? Please start. Yeah. Hello, Dr. Deshmukh. What are your thoughts on this? Yeah.
Looks like I have put them to sleep.
No.
No, it is too vast a topic and he had too much material, too many slides. I wish it was a little more focused on a particular aspect of it.
Yeah, that's right.
Too much material and too many slides.
Yeah. So that is true. And I agree with you. But I wanted to share, the diversity also. And so therefore, I did that. And the number of slides, I have a lot more. In fact, I did not talk much about, the natural philosophers from the Western world, what they thought about Hindu literature. I did not discuss anything, although I have written a lot about it in my book. And the reason was limitation of time. And I struggle with this, again and again. And then I feel I'm so lucky that I'm from a culture where I have spent my lifetime learning about this. And I know so little because their contribution is at such a level and, so much of it that it is basically impossible to master it. And again, I feel very fortunate to be a part of that culture.
Yeah, some of these historical documents, they are so varied and from so many sources. Sometimes it's hard to decide who to believe in. From Islamic world, Greek world, and Europeans and Indians, just history is very difficult to really find the truth in. Very difficult.
Not really. Not really. I think, see, after Europe decided to colonize ethnic cultures, after that, they played with their literature and produced massive literature, basically showing that these ethnic cultures are not worth saving. And, they became quite successful at it. So, but before they started colonization, if you read their literature before that, then there is very little dispute about it. That even in Europe, they were saying that India is the leader in science and technology. It is after when British decided to subjugate India, then Indians became illiterate, and they had to be civilized, as Rudyard Kipling said, a white man's burden. But in fact, let me also share, because you have mentioned this, what was the starting point of my book? The starting point of my book was, I wanted to leave India, and my father did not want me to leave. So we had a big fight at home, and he realized that, I want to, I'm determined to leave India and come to the US. So he said, okay, do something, promise me that you are going to write a book, do something for the religion and do something for the country. If you keep those two promises, I will allow you to go. So I promised him that I'm going to write a book. So then I thought, as a child, I was trained that India was a great civilization. And I thought, if India indeed was a great civilization, then other cultures must have written something about it. So I decided to go through the whole Greek literature, the whole Middle Eastern literature, Egyptian literature, and the European literature. And I found out there is very little discrepancy if you study literature that was produced before the 11th century. After 11th century, then there is a big problem. But before that, they were all saying that India was a great civilization. In fact, if you read Islamic literature, practically all their top philosophers were saying that this is the knowledge of India. Something, the literature that we have produced now, we don't mention much. But in the medieval literature, that's very clearly stated. Same thing with Greece, same thing with Europe. It is only after, I think it was 12th century, Roger Bacon, that's the name of a scientist, who decided to write a book on, China, India, and the Middle East. It's called Opus Majus. That's the title of that book. It's available on the internet easily, a free copy, because it was written in 12th century. That book was written because the Pope asked him to write that book because he wanted to Christianize the whole world. With that intention, how to Christianize the whole world, he wrote that book, Opus Majus. After that, things changed and the history got distorted. But prior to that, there is very little dispute.
Very good. Anybody else? Yes.
Yeah, this is Harilal Patel from Pittsburgh. I have a question about gravitational force. I read little bit about it, how this knowledge, which used to be actually in Kerala part of the India, and how it went through Arabs to Europe, and obviously Newton. Whenever we talk about gravitational force, we talk about Newton. And can you give a little bit knowledge about how it have been to? Because we have a Narlikar from, at least I attended a Narlikar lecture in IIT when I was their student at that time. And he himself has done some work or correction in the value of gravitational forces.
Yeah, by the I assume you are talking about Jayant Vishnu Narlikar.
Yes.
Yeah, he worked in Syracuse University, which is very close to where I am, and I have followed his work quite good. But let me share about gravitational force. This is written in Vaisheshika Sutra, which is considered to be written 6th century BC. And according to that, water is falling due to gravity. That's what, what is written in Vaisheshika Sutra. And there is no question about it that, that Indians believed that that's the case. And let me share another statement right here. Just as the ball formed by the Kadamba flower, which is I have shown, is surrounded on all sides by blossom, so the earth is surrounded by all sides by creatures, terrestrial and aquatic. So that means there is no up or down in earth. That can only happen because of the gravitational force. So Indians knew about gravitational force. It's not just one or two. I can show you many, many more books where gravitational force is mentioned. The genius of Newton was that he gave a mathematical form. In India, I do not know that mathematical form. That's the genius of Newton, that F is equal to G m1 m2 upon r square. But the existence of gravitational force was known to Hindus, quite well. No question about it, because there are not one book, there are multiple books where gravitational force, in fact, the term they have used in Sanskrit language is Gurutva-karshan. Akarshan means attraction, Gurutva means, earth. Yeah, so the term was, itself can easily be translated into, gravitational force. So they knew it, but Newton provided a mathematical form to that force.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Anybody else? One question, Dr. Alok Kumar ji. Maybe why these Western countries are not recognizing the Indian invention as science? Because, the word science itself came to be used around 17th century, and based on use of scientific methods. You have an observation or you have a question, you do research, you have a hypothesis, you test it with experiment, you analyze data, you repeat in conclusion. So they are looking for this evidence, and probably they don't find it. So it is now the responsibility of India to put together this evidence, in a concrete form, and present it to the world. Then only it will be recognized. What do you think? As you have done a great work in putting all these observations, literature, etc. together. I think this is the kind of work required to get the work done by Indian or Hindu inventors, scientists, or they may not be scientists, they may be just observations, but proven by experience, observation, experience. But not tested in the conventional state as understood now, but that is now the country's responsibility to document it. What do you think? You know?
Okay, let me explain.
So I'm just comparing scientific methods versus the older way of presenting the scientific or conclusions. You know, that's the difference. Yeah.
If you read, you know, Soviet era history of science, or the European, when I'm saying European, sorry, Western, or Nazi science or Chinese science, you will not find there is a coherence. The reason, all these sciences are favoring their own cultures.
Yeah.
That's how it is. So they are all biased. Why are they doing it? The reason they are doing it is a lot easier to unite the country if you celebrate its greatness. And that's what Europe did. Because they wanted to colonize, they showed their greatness. In fact, I mean, it's a known historical facts that in Spain, they decided not to sell their books to rest of Europe. At one time, a decree was issued because the reason when I'm saying Spain means the Islamic Spain. They decided not to sell their books to the Christian Europe because they thought these people are going to translate it and they will not credit the original source. They will write their own name and say this is our knowledge. So a decree was issued in Spain. So that's what happened. They wrote history which was highly biased. And the purpose was so that they can unite the country and they can basically subjugate these ethnic cultures. And that strategy worked very well because they succeeded. And even today, you say the kind of things I'm talking here, if without a book, without proper proof, if I talk about it, people will think that, I'm a radical person. True. Because they will not trust me. And that's the situation in India even today. So we have that colonial mindset, in India, unfortunately.
Govind, you have to say something. Please go ahead. Govind?
Yes, I just Google while he was talking and I was listening, and anybody who has little doubt that what he has presented, and I mean, he was challenged for his authenticity, who to believe and all that. But it's a simple, if you Google that subject, you will find authentic publications and will know that what ancient India has done or contributed to this. So there is no doubt. It's a tragedy that the Western culture or Western world didn't recognize that or don't recognize even today. But it's a fact. So there should not be any doubt in anybody's mind that the beginning or the basic discoveries were done by ancient Indians in science and technologies, many basic discoveries. That's all I want to add.
Yeah, but just think about it. How many books are written on this? When you will look at that, you will find there are only a handful of books. In fact, related to science, there are hardly 2 or 3 books published. In fact, the Ministry of Education, they are listing my book as somebody, if you want to know Indian knowledge system, then they are recommending that this my book is the one they should, people should read. But if you see that list, most of the books are dealing with philosophy, religion, and other topics. Very few, hardly, I think 2 or 3 are dealing with science. So still, I think not much work is being done. But the way things are evolving, my feeling is it will change. We have not translated not even 10% of the Sanskrit documents into English so that scholars can study it. 90% of the documents are not even translated. They are just lying in various libraries. Just like this Kautilya Arthashastra, we know it only from the last 100, 125 years. We did not know about it before that. There are lots more that is waiting to be unearthed.
I think Alok Kumar ji, you should meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi and educate him on this issue. I mean, he knows it, but he will give a special grant to get this whole documentation done. So long as.
See, the problem is I'm a small chicken.
Let us write
I
to
don't.
him.
It's not easy to get connected to him.
Let us write to him. No, let us write to him. Let us work on it. Yeah. Anybody else has any question, please?
Yeah, I have a question.
I'll just add in 1 minute that what has happened because the world language in general is English, and because of that, these things were not done in English, and as he said, they were not translated into different languages or English, and that's why like a lot of people in the world don't know about this.
Yes, very good.
Partly true.
Anybody else? Hello.
Yeah, I have a question that Alok, thank you so much for sharing the information. This is a wonderful session. I just heard that, the Sanskrit language is dying, and, there is so much knowledge in those Sanskrit granthas which are there in India and various places. So as I do not know, like I want to learn, but, I do not know like how much we can contribute, but, if Indian government takes some initiative to learn or translate those granthas into English or the language that is understood by us, I think that will be very helpful. And
by the way, there are courses in Sanskrit available from Hindu University, right in United States. It's located in Florida. So if you go into the website Hindu University, they are offering this is on an individual basis, but I know what you mean. We need a nationwide effort to revive Sanskrit and get this all this literature, books translated in English and world language. That's how they will know the greatness of Indian civilization and the achievements, accomplishments of our ancient Hindus, or whatever your name you call them.
And
So
one more question I have is that I have been I've been learning that there are so many temples in India, Jagannath Puri temple. So that temple was also that it was constructed is one of the miracle you can see based on current technology also. So those temples, the what angle it was built, and also that how that the sun rays fall. So that was so much knowledge they had, and also that one of the temple I don't remember which temple, but there was like the one huge rock was lifted which was put on the top. So our ancestor, they knew about the gravity, and I do not know the formula. It was formulated by Newton, but they knew about that, how much force is needed to lift that, and then how it will be carried to that particular height. So much knowledge was there. I think, unfortunately, we do not know that at this point of time.
That is so true. There are several things that I would like to share. One, you mentioned that Sanskrit is dying. That is a big dispute about this issue. Is people sitting in the West who are saying that the Sanskrit language is dying or already dead. It's a dead language, But there is a big dispute about it. Rajiv Mehrotra, who lives in New Jersey, he has written a book about it. And I would be happy to connect you with him in case you want to learn more about it. There is a effort to basically saying that this is a past, let's ignore it, and that effort is highly organized, and they have money. What?
Please go on mute. Sorry.
Okay.
Vandana
So
ji, Vandana
that's
ji,
Rajiv Malhotra has written a book about that, that Sanskrit language is not dying and this is a propaganda. Now, talking about these temples, almost some 5-6 years ago, I contacted the National Security Agency in America and came up with an idea that let us teach Hindi using Indian archaeological sites. So I told them that I'm going to create documentary films based on Indian archaeological sites, and from there you can teach Hindi to the people. And this National Security Agency, they loved that idea and gave me about $100,000, and I raised some another $20,000 and produced about 25 short documentary films. So I'm aware what you're talking. Unfortunately, we have not done that work in India. And as a result, we do not know the beauty of our temples, what kind of science we can learn, what kind of astronomy we can learn from those temples. Nobody has, we have not done much studies on that. Another unfortunate thing, we have not documented those sites digitally. In fact, even big places like Jantar Mantar in Jaipur, it's not properly digitized as yet. So we have a long way to go. Unfortunately, it costs money, and raising money is not easy. And of course, it needs expertise.
Okay, there are
Somebody
two
should-
hands are raised. Vandana Gadre.
Yeah, this is Anand Garde.
Anand ji.
I'm a metallurgist, and I was interested in your slide 43 about the iron pillar. Could you explain what you found?
Oh, yes, that is very well defined now, very well known. What they did was, during the smelting process, they put phosphorus in it. And when you put phosphorus in it, what happens is phosphorus interacts with water, and it produces a layer where oxygen cannot penetrate through. And therefore, you can create rust-free iron. Now, the popular feeling is, oh, it's an isolated artifact just in New Delhi. But the truth is, there are quite a few artifacts all over the country. We have in Madhya Pradesh, near Indore. We have it in Bangalore. We have it in Odisha, near Sun Temple. Near Sun Temple, we have beams and beams of iron that is rust-free. They're just lying outdoor for the last 500 years, and there is no rusting on those. So that's something, we mastered it long ago. When I was talking about this, I also mentioned, the term Falade Hind. That's the term we use, in Persia about steel. Falade Hind. Falad means steel. Hind is India. Steel that is coming from India. That's the best sword in the Middle East, was the sword that was coming from India. because Indians were so good with Damascus blade that their sword did not break, and it could cut even stones. And that was the reputation of Indian steel. And if you know the Kaaba, which is the most sacred, place for the Muslims, at one time it was surrounded by a cloth where the poems were written on it, and those poems were ancient poems. And one poem dealt with Indian sword. So that's how popular Indian swords were at one time. But that metallurgical skill, we were very good at. Or for example, since you are a metallurgist, I can mention this, the distillation of zinc. The West could distillate, zinc only recently. In India, it was done long ago. And if you know the distillation process, it's very complex. I have explained it in my book. Indians were doing it thousands of years ago.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, we don't share that knowledge.
Thank you.
One more hand, iPhone. We don't have the name. Do you want to talk? Rameshji, you are on mute.
Sorry, yeah. So I think any other question? Is somebody from, say, iPhone? He wants.
I have a
No?
question.
Yeah,
Vivek.
Hello.
please go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Alok, for sharing all this and documenting it, researching it, and presenting with evidence. I think this documenting is extremely important to give credibility to your research. What's your, as important as documenting and researching is, and sharing what you have found, what's your thought of refuting a lot of misinformation also that floats around? And have you come across claims that you found to be untrue?
Yes, I did find a lot of claims that were untrue, but mostly or almost all of it in the secondary literature, not in the primary literature. Means scholars who wrote about it during the ancient and medieval period, there are very little mistakes in those. It is only recent literature, because there is a massive, propaganda going on, not only, in one country, but in many, many countries for the last, I would say 200-300 years or even more. So we are producing literature that is not correct. And that is the reason why, when I wrote this book, I gave them original documents that you can go and check it, that whether it's true or not. So everything that I'm writing, I'm providing a historical evidence for that. So I'm saying go and read in Aryabhata's book, in that chapter, that particular verse.
Right.
So I think that kind of work should be done so that people, they can investigate on their own rather than trusting me. Most of the books that are written these days, they are written in a style like gurus, okay, I'm saying it, believe it,
No, and that's why I applaud what you've done. This was very nicely done and with references, and I saw neatly presented references, even including page numbers. So that
Yeah.
was really nicely done. Thank
And
you and congratulations for that.
thank you so much. But I should also share another thing, publishing on Indian science is not easy, by the way. You become a target.
Right.
Because you are basically demolishing the Western monument that we have created on the history of science. You are saying there are flaws in it, so you become a target. But if you read the reviews written on my book, you will not find anybody attacking me for the quality of my information. It's all quite positive. In fact, just this month, or last month, I have published a paper on this issue in the American Physical Society magazine, which is the body that is taking care of all physics in this country. It was a long process, but they accepted it and it's published right now. And that will help the future generation of scientists, working on that issue.
Very good.
Thank you.
Asha Goreji, I think you have a lot of questions. Do you want to talk? Hello?
I
बोला चला तो बोला तुम्ही बोला.
I don't want to talk, but the thing is that I'm complimenting a great deal. He has done a fantastic job, and I'm glad that I attended this. My question is about the Chinese civilization. What do you think compared to, there is a debate going on, is the China is most ancient than India? Have you ever studied that aspect? And did they have more inventions than India?
Okay, interesting, If you read the history of the world, it has never happened, except for India, that a country is basically culturally captured, not politically, but culturally captured without killing even a single human being. And that's what happened with China. Because of the influence of Indian, scholarship, they basically subjugated China. In fact, during the Tang Dynasty, and I have mentioned that in my book, the astrologer was most of the time an Indian. And by the way, right now, when we are talking about astrology, it is basically not, you may think, oh, who cares? But for a king, every day, every move had to be approved by the astrologer. That was the most powerful position in the Chinese court. And they were all, majority of them, good many of them, were Indians. India became a Buddhist country. Sorry, China became a Buddhist country without killing a single Chinese. No sword was used, and that tells you the dominance of Indian philosophies and Indian knowledge system on China. If you read any book on China written by their own historians 100 years ago, that's not too long ago, that history and the history that is written today, there is a difference of day and night. So they are also producing literature that is not, true. Somewhat. Some people are doing, not all. But there is a massive effort to define who they are independent of India.
Which is not correct, because Buddhism had spread up to the northern, up to inner Mongolia, bordering Russia.
That's right.
I've been
That's
to
right.
China. I worked in China for 10 years. And I saw the Buddhist temple 500 miles north of Beijing, north of where Buddha's bone is buried, And government has taken and put some secret place now, taken out and secret place somewhere. But
I fail to understand though that what my question is about the scientific invention, whether the China and compared to India, who was the
leader.
Okay, by the that issue cannot be resolved easily, and let me explain it to you why.
Okay.
Indians have not put any effort in defining their history, almost zero. While Chinese, they established few chairs in Oxford, Needham Institute, if you know Joseph Needham, where they systematically studied Chinese history. Chinese government poured millions and millions of dollars. And, they have produced, I think, somewhere close to 36 volumes of history in science. So that gives an idea, the magnitude of their efforts. In India, nothing has been done on that. The only thing that has been done is, few projects supported by the West to deny that India did not do anything. That's it.
Yeah.
So those were the few projects, and some of those projects were fairly recent.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a vast subject apparently, and it's if the ancient culture is supersedes the Chinese than Indian, then there is probably the flow from India to China, or it could be Chinese themselves. Say, for example, metallurgy or other important sciences. Do you have a proof? Like we have a proof, and most of our documents in Nalanda and all that fire were burnt. So we have no access to ancient documentation.
Okay. Yes. By the way, you have said a very important point, and let me explain that. First thing is, and please pardon me, I'm going to go for a long answer to what you are saying,
Yeah.
If you study Greek literature, their top philosophers, Thales, Pythagoras, Plato, Anaxagoras, Democritus, these were the top philosophers of Greece, and they hardly ever lived in Greece. They were travelers. Where were they traveling? To Babylon, Persia, and India, which is a documented fact. In their own history, it is mentioned. I have given you a few examples of Pythagoras, but I have limitation of time, so I could not give other documents. Now, coming back to China, same thing. See the top philosophers of the Chinese knowledge system. Who were those? Even today, it is Huensang, Ising, Faiyan. These are the names. These are the top philosophers. What were they doing? They were making a trip to India.
Oh, I see.
Learning. In their document, they are saying it that this is the knowledge of India, and which is very well documented.
Okay.
I'm going to give you an example of how this started. History is today. If you'll read what is the origin of hospital, they will tell you is Iraq, 9th century. Now, when I'm talking about Fayan, that's 4th century. He came to India and he wrote that Indians have hospitals which are supported by local business people, and any poor person can go there and get the treatment. 500 years before what most science books will tell you. Now, in India, if you read Charak Sahinta, it has even explained the design of a hospital, how the hospital should be designed, what kind of people should serve in that hospital. So we are talking of, a knowledge that was so highly advanced. Unfortunately, we have not shared it with the rest of the world and even with our own people. And it becomes a lot easier to unite the country if you can glorify the country. And we have not done that.
That's true. Thank you.
A lot of work is required on part of India, Indians. Yeah, I think that's what. But I think Dr. Alok Kumar, we should write a document, a letter on this to Prime Minister, and there are people who can follow up on it. But it has to be done soon, in the sense before 1924. So something can be.
That's true. I agree that we should appeal to Prime Minister, and he is very good at it. He's maintaining so much of Indian ancient cultures. So
we will help you to put it together.
Yeah.
And
Okay. Now, since I'm talking so many crazy things, let me share one more fact about India. The book that I have published, the very first book, is called Science in the Medieval World. And that book, right here, this book, Science in the Medieval World, this book is based on 11th century Spanish document. And the document I have shared, it's saying that science started from India and Indians are the leaders. And the whole book explains a lot of things about Indian contribution. Now, the book is published from University of Texas Press. It is circulated in the whole world. So tomorrow you can be in Frankfurt or London or Sydney or Berlin or anywhere. You can find a copy of this book. It has done reasonably well. But you go anywhere in India, you are not going to find a single copy. The book was published 31 years ago and is still not a single copy in any library in India. And when I published this book, I thought, Indians would love to see something like this.
that's a shame.
And so in India, this book does not exist. And so recently, I gave an interview and I shared this information. It got 50,000 hits, that YouTube interview. So that's where we are in India. And by the way, I'm not complaining about any particular government or anything. I'm just saying the mindset of people in academia. If for some reason such a thing is not interesting to them, they don't want to know what was their past, and that's the way it is. So we have a long way to go, by the way, in India. I mean, just imagine if a book is doing so well internationally, why can't we have 5 copies in the country? And it is reviewed very positively, by the way. It is reviewed very in the top journals. It has been reviewed and quite well. and yet, you will not see it in India. So Indians do not know about the existence of this book.
That's sad for this apathy.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
So, any more question, or we'll close the discussion? Okay, thank you both for Dr. Alok Kumar.
By the way, I should thank you for inviting me, because it's a topic I don't get a chance to talk much about, because I cannot teach a course based on it.
Yeah.
Those courses are not, available in the West, and there are not many people who enjoy science or who can follow science, and so I don't get a chance to talk about it.
Right.
So it's a unique opportunity for me to share this, although it's very late for me. I
know.
I sleep by this time, so that's the reason I'm today. My mouth is so dry because I've been working since morning and somewhat tired at this time of the evening. But it was such a wonderful experience. Thank you, Rameshji, for inviting me.
I happened to meet you. And I'm glad you agreed to do this presentation. It's a lot of important, and it is also, we didn't cover much of Ayurveda and yoga and other issues, which have contributed so much to humanity. And it is a very, even for future to go. So there are a lot of other topics we have not covered, but we will do at some other time.
Yeah, for example.
Thank you for
I will stop. But I was about to say that the best system of self-improvement is yoga.
Yeah.
I could not even touch it.
Yeah, that's what that's so important. More we read about Patanjali Yoga Shastra and Hatha Yoga, and all these scriptures. You can imagine the kind of amazing work they have done to improve the longevity of people, to improve the health of people, and talk about the both health of body and health of mind. Body, mind, and intellect, all three were covered. And from simple yama niyama rules to kaivalya, that is what the yoga science takes you, to kaivalya, which is moksha, which you are talking about. So this is amazing knowledge which India had developed. But starting with, as you said, 11th century, and it accelerated in 14th century, where Hindu scriptures and Hindu temples were demolished, and it worsened when the British came. And those 150 years, you became slaves and say, we know nothing and we are poor. And Macaulay would say that whole Indian literature can be kept in one cupboard, or one bookshelf. And he did not appreciate the kind of, the wealth of knowledge, or the knowledge as wealth that was there in India. So this is very unfortunate. But as a closing note, Dr. Alok Kumar, this is a great opportunity to take this effort forward. Yeah? And we should do two things. We should write a very decent letter to Prime Minister of India saying it is too late. We have to revive this literature. What exactly? And go to Education Ministry. The National Education Policy 2020 allows for all this. Modi government has done an enormous job in producing NEP, National Education Policy 2020. We are working on it, on one part of it. So you may want to look at that document. So we'll talk about NEP and we'll say what India is missing in the area of education of its own scientific and spiritual and cultural achievements. And then write to him that you set up a special group in Education Ministry, in Education Ministry to take this work forward. So why not we do that? I think I will help to support in any way I can. And I can get some more volunteers.
My problem is all my life, I never had to blow my own horn to, publicize my work. I've been very fortunate,
See, you are serving your motherland, and that is so important. See, don't worry about all these other little things. about self.
Yes.
And that's not important. So you
I
get
have
a-
written these books, and wherever these books can take me, I'm happy to, go there. But I do not know if you are, advise me. I can proceed, but I have not done much, related.
No,
to
we should talk more about as we go along. We should talk more.
Are they
Okay, again.
available on Amazon?
Hello, please.
Are the books available on Amazon?
That is right. In fact, not only Amazon, practically all digital outlets,
Oh,
even in India.
thank you.
And the prices of these books will change greatly by the depending on where you are going to buy.
Dr. Kumar, where in India one can buy?
Amazon.
From Amazon
India.
in India. Amazon India.
only.
Yeah.
I somehow don't have any good feeling about
Yes.
Amazon part, but any other publisher or?
Yeah.
I checked. Amazon India has most of these.
Like
books.
this one is published from Jacko, Mumbai.
Oh, Jaipur.
Jacko is among the top 5 publishers in India. Is the publisher that published the very first pocketbook in India. So it's quite well known.
How do you
Go
spell
to any railway station, and usually they have Jacko stall. And I'm saying it by the based on old information. So, but this is if you type Jacko publisher Mumbai, you can get the website address and you can order it.
Okay, thank you.
And the price will be a lot less. I think right now from India you can buy it in maybe $3 or $4, versus in America or from the Swiss, it is about $30-$35. The only difference is Indian is black and white, American is colored.
Okay.
Sorry, just to concluding note, Dr. Alok Kumar, thank you again once time. And just to let you know, those people who are interested to join this group, please send me an email. So I'll put in the mailing list. I have given my email my email own ID in the announcement we made, ramesh@deshpande.name.com or not Gmail, ramesh@deshpande.name. And please send me an email. There is another program coming up. One retired IAS Chief Secretary, Madam Leela Mehndare, she's an authority on Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita. So she has agreed to do 30 lectures on Mahabharata, different parvas. So I will send out an announcement and see what the response is. And she is ready to do one lecture per fortnight. So it can go for 2 years. But we will consider whether we can do that. And she said she will bring out the essence of Mahabharata, not the stories per se, but what each parva talks about, what the issues it handles, culturally, socially, emotionally, religiously, spiritually. So that's what she's going to talk about. So that is the next program we are planning to have. Thank you so much. All right. Good night, everybody. And
Okay.
thank you, Dr.
Thank
Alok
you.
Kumar.
Thank you again.